Welcome to Armanino's Sage Intacct R2 release webinar. My name is Kim Anselmo, and I'm going to help us get started with some Zoom webinar logistics this morning. And thanks, Irene. So just to let you know, the best way to engage with us is through a few icons on the Zoom webinar toolbar that you'll see. The first one is to use the Q&A box, where you can click on that and open up and write in there a text field of your message that you would like. We will do our best to answer those questions either online or at the end of the webinar. There is also a chat box. We do really hope that you will enter your questions through the Q&A box so we can track them. But if you do need to send a chat to either one of our panelists, you can do that through the chat. And if anytime you do have any issues, you can use the raise your hand button and I will come online and help you out with that as well. Another tip, next slide, is to adjust your audio speakers. Hopefully everybody is able to hear us, but if you're having some difficulties, you can click on the audio settings on the lower right of the screen, the toolbar there, and then click audio options, and that opens up the audio settings. If you click on the test speaker, you should be able to hear a test tone, and if not, use the drop-down box to select a different speaker type. That should help you out. And also, our webinar today does qualify for CPE credits, so you will need to actively respond to all the polling questions and stay on for the duration of the broadcast in order to qualify. If at any time you have difficulties responding to those poll questions, just go ahead and send an email to elevate@armaninol.com with your name, the date of the session, along with your poll responses, and we'll get that taken care of for you. And again, just a reminder, submit any of your questions or comments through the Q&A. I'll have to fix that slide, excuse me, through the Q&A as well. So, and with that, let's go ahead and get started with our presenters today. We have Irene Bushnell, our Senior Manager Consultant, as well as Michelle Schimberg, our Director of Consulting.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Academy New Release webinar class today. Irene Bushnell, a Senior Manager here at Armanino. I'll be presenting the content today along with Michelle Schimberg.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Schimberg. I'm a Director in the Consulting Department of Armanino, and I'm super excited to be here for you.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and get started. Our learning objectives for today, we're going to identify the new release features for you from Sage Intacct that came out about a month ago now. We're going to demonstrate, we'll do some things in Intacct following along with our PowerPoint and talk about some of the new release features that have been happening, allowing you to really manage what features are in this latest release and hopefully maximizing its potential so that you can implement and start using some of these new features. Lots of topics today. As always, we're excited that there are so many new release features in this release, some bigger than others, but definitely some very nice ones that Michelle and I are looking forward to sharing with you today. We're going to get started with user experience, our first topic of the day. As you are aware, Intacct has been adding the functionality for taxes in Sage Intacct. As we expand more and more across multiple countries, really being able to handle the VAT and the GST solutions, Intacct has created a module that handles that. In the past, you had to be a brand new implementation in order to use this feature. Starting with this release, you can now turn it on, even if you are an existing US company, and really be able to start handling the VAT and GST solutions. If you need that feature, if you're not sure about it, there is quite a bit to do to get it set up and going. Feel free to reach out to your client manager here at Armanino and be happy to help you with that new feature. Admin and company. We're going to start with a polling question. Kim, polling question number 1. All right, so the first polling question of the day. Go ahead, Michelle. I'm going to let Michelle handle this one.
Sure. We want to know if you're using checklist and assignment features in Sage Intacct.
Okay, everybody's answering. You guys should be able to see a little pop-up box that shares the polling questions. If you're having trouble seeing it, just let us know. Lots
And
of
we'll let it go
engagement.
for about a couple more seconds.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the polling.
Excellent. All right, so it looks like most of you are not using the new feature of checklist assignments, which they've added to in release 2. Next question, or next slide, please.
Yeah, I love it. What are checklists? Okay, well, let's find out what they are.
So in a previous release, Sage Intacct released checklists, and what that is an ability to, within the system, have checklists such as your month-end checklist with assignments for different tasks that need to be completed so that you can see the status of those. Next, the new features assign tasks, see responsibilities, and understand progress on your tasks. It's pretty easy to set up. You will need to assign permissions, as you do in most new things in Sage Intacct, and then you can add the checklist to and assign people to those checklists. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and I just want to call out that may be why many of you are saying, what are checklists? Because by default, Intacct did not check these permissions. So you won't see it in your environment until you go into your roles and set up those permissions.
Thanks, Irene. So this release, they have added checklists and assignments can now be imported and exported just as you can in most places in Sage Intacct. You can use a very easy CSV to import the checklist and the assignment. You can add dependencies to assignments. So let's say you have a month-end close checklist, and one of the tasks is to do your bank rec. But in order to do your bank rec, you have to have your payroll journal processed. You can have your payroll journal as an assignment assigned to somebody, and it cannot, then the bank rec would not be able to be started until that payroll journal was uploaded. You can also control who can update to checklists and assignments. So maybe you only want the owner of the checklist to update things, or perhaps you also are okay with the users assigned to also update those checklists. Finally, you can create custom reports using a custom report writer to create put it on a dashboard, or to send it to your executives to let them know the status of the month-end close. Next slide, please.
All right, so we're going to cover budgeting and planning next. And I'm going to just show you really quick in Sage Intacct. You should be able to see my environment of Sage Intacct. The checklists are found under Company, and you have to do your setup first, and you're going to set up checklists. Then under All, you're actually going to see your checklists and assignments. Again, if you don't see those there, it's all based about permissions. Thanks, Michelle. Budgeting and planning. Sage Intacct's budgeting and planning module, referred to as SIBP, that is subscription based. There are more enhancements if you're using this particular module. Most of them are related to the importing process. With many of us, we still use Excel to do our calculations and get all our formulas in for our budgeting. When you're doing a mass update of your budget, it will now overwrite detected data, which is very nice. It will also add data to new budget lines, which is great, so that if you've got some new ones, right? So it'll overwrite and add. And you can also cancel certain data lines if you don't want to during the import process. You can select specific data with filters, which is very nice. You can use the percent change column to automatically increase or decrease budget line values. That's really nice if you're, preparing for the next year. You've got that whole budget process and you want to take some lines and you want to go ahead and increase those by a certain percent. Instead of duplicating all of the model lines, you can now copy and paste formulas in your different models that you've built out. I think that should say models, not modules. Sorry, I'll get that fixed. manage employee advanced benefit categories and mappings. We talked about this in the last release, the ability now to be able to look at accounts in your general ledger in Intacct that are related to employee expenses and have those mapped specifically over to the budget line items, making it much more robust for getting the detailed information for your benefit and wage information. General ledger, Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Irene. So in the general ledger this year, or excuse me, in this release, they have now added attachments that you can see on the approval list. So you'll be able to see at a glance whether or not the journal entries that have been submitted to you for approval have an attachment. And you can drill into the attachment from that little icon. They've also added journal entry approval notification. So now a base for each journal that requires approval, your administrator can set the frequency of that email notification. So that can be per journal entry submission, or it can be a weekly summary, a monthly summary, or a daily summary. Also, for those of you who are using outlier detection, it now evaluates the allocations on each transaction line. That's a nice new feature. Next slide. All right, submitted to approval updates. You now have, this was an idea that came from you, and what it is that you have in the journal entries now, you can tell what the status is of your approvals and who has the approval in your journal entry. So as you'll see later in later slides, the Sage Intacct has now added a history tab to the journal entry screen, and you can see on the history tab who has the status of who has the submission for your journal entry. Next slide. Finally, for those of you that are using user-defined books, as you know, when you add a report normally, previous to this release, you had to go and select what books you wanted to include in that report. They've now expanded the capability to select when selecting a standard report, graph, or performance card, you can default a user-defined book. So as an example, if you're using allocations, and you always want to include allocations in your reporting as a default, you can do it that way. This is something your administrator will need to set up, and it is a company-wide selection. It is also able to be modified.
So in Intacct, we'll just take a quick peek over here. I'm in the General Ledger module. I'm under Setup, Configuration. And this is where, right, the very first setting here, this is this new setting where I can pick and choose which books I want to always include as my defaults right here under Configuration. Excellent. Nice feature for those using additional books. Inventory enhancements. Oh my goodness, you guys. Intacct is making so many enhancements to inventory. It's awesome. They're really stepping up what this module can do, which we've been looking forward to for quite some time. Turning off negative inventory. So there is a checkbox in the configuration. It's always been there that allows you to turn off negative inventory checkbox. Now, if you select that feature, there's another new checkbox below that will, however, allow negative inventory for specific warehouses. So if you want to turn off negative inventory, but allow it for just specific warehouses, you'll have the ability to do that. Okay. Reviewing GL posting from within transactions. You're going to see this throughout today's presentation. Intacct has added a tab, and we have that ability to now be able to see the posting of a transaction right within the transaction. Not 10, not 20, not 30, but 40 new standard fields added to the item record. Items. So if you're using order entry, you're using purchasing, right? You know the item record. That, well, related to inventory, there are 40 new standard fields to really help people track inventory items. Very nice. There is now visibility into bins for a particular item. and enhanced permissions, okay, if you're using building and disassembling kits. In the past, you had permissions for kits overall. You could build and or disassemble. Now you have the option for separate permissions. So you can restrict a user, one person can build and another person can disassemble based on permissions. Intacct has changed the layout of printed transfer to include more details. So there are from and to warehouses, quantity of each line item transferred, and then bin, lot, serial, and expiration dates where applicable. Simplified price list imports. You can see by the screenshot down there, in doing imports for price lists, the date from and the date to field are there. They're no longer required, so you can leave them blank if needed. And they've removed the ability for on-order quantities to go negative. So if you're using inventory, make sure that you check those new features out. Continuing on, purchasing and order entry. Again, this is a big one, right? We have insight now into transactions. Let's take a look in Intacct. I'm going to go ahead and go to the entity level. You'll see that I am in my order entry transactions, and I have a invoice that has posted, pending, waiting to be converted, whatever phase it's in. The trick to this is you have to use view mode. Okay, so I'm going to click on view. And when I view an existing transaction, whether it's order entry or purchasing, there is now a posting detail tab. We saw this in a few screens in the last release. It's almost in every screen now. So here, posting details, yay, there's my debits and credits. I can see exactly where this is going to post in my general ledger. Isn't that nice? You will have, it is nice. You will have to make sure that the user has view permissions on journal entries in order to see that. All right. And if you click edit, I did this, so you're all going to do it. So I'm going to show you. If you click edit, you do not see the posting tab because, of course, Intacct thinks you're going to make a change, and so it's not going to show it. You do have to be in view mode. So make sure you look in your environments, click on view, and you can now see postings. A couple other enhancements. Again, we just shared this on the inventory slide as well, but I wanted to do it for purchasing and order entry in case you weren't using inventory, but you are using this over in PO or OE. This is that same CSV import file for updating existing items. And so the date from and the date to are no longer required. You can leave them blank if you need to for price lists. Love this. Object IDs are now available. This is so exciting, isn't it? When we're in transactions, when we're in master records, if I go into my customer record and I go into view a customer, in the past, I only saw the customer name on the main tab. Look across the top now. Intacct keeps the name and the ID no matter which tab I'm on. Some of you have probably already noticed that and love it, right? It is so nice because I used to have to come, now which customer I'm on? Oh yeah, but there it is. Same with vendors. If you go into your vendors, okay, same thing. Intacct is keeping the object ID and name in the title across all tabs in that object. Very nice. Easier sales transaction entry for tracked items. If you're using serial, lot, and bin, you can see that there is a drill down now on those transaction rows where you can go in and look up available quantities for different types of bins, serial and bin, depending on what you've got set up. This, of course, is totally based on what you have set up in the background as to what you're going to be able to do drill down on. And then you'll see the screenshot below. There, it actually shows you quantity available, quantity to fill, gives you that information right within the transaction. There's also an option for out of stock items. Way over on the far right of the transaction screen, you'll see an action button. And there you can click on the substitute item and it will pop up what substitutions you've set up. This is all related to that cross-reference. For those of you that are using the cross-reference field that was released in the last release, allowing you to tie things together, this is related to that, along with this ability to do substitutes. And as you can see, the last bullet, the item cross-reference template now gives you the ability to put in that alternative item ID as well. Purchasing, a couple things in purchasing. There is a new approval configuration related to changes. In the past, you had one checkbox that says if something changes on a particular transaction, have it go through the approval process again. That did not include subtotal changes. Now you can have Intacct indicate either only the line item amount changes have to go back through approval, or any line item or a subtotal amount change. So that's in your configuration. If you do have approvals going through a reapproval process, you might want to look at that setting and make sure it's set appropriately. A very new a new feature coming that is very exciting, three-way matching. Early adopter program is available. If you're interested in this, reach out to your client manager as soon as possible. But Intacct is implementing a three-way match, which is going to match the invoice, the purchase order, and the receipt to validate the details of a purchase before making a payment. Isn't that nice? So if you're doing that within Intacct, you're going to want to make sure and maybe sign up for that and be able to test it and see how that's going to work. Nice feature there. We talked a little bit in the beginning about the VAT tax solution. There is now the ability in purchasing to do partial exemptions if you're using the UK VAT tax solution. Calculates the recoverable and non-recoverable portions of the VAT that has been input. It also captures the recoverable amount for reporting on your actual VAT return and expenses the non-recoverable amount to the general ledger account for the line or to a partial exemption, okay, if there's one that's been specified. A couple of dependencies, so there's a couple of things you have to be aware of. Partial exemption is selected on each line item. So with this first release, there's no way to just automatically make every line in your transaction exempt. You do have to do it line by line for now, but it's a good start, right? And then second, if you're a multi-entity company, which most all of us are, your transactions with partial exemptions do have to be at the entity level. So make sure both of those, you've looked at those because both of those will apply. Lots of good enhancements for purchasing. Back to you, Michelle, accounts receivable and accounts payable.
Thank you, Irene. Okay, so they did make a couple of changes in accounts receivable and accounts payable this release. One of them is that they've added the drill down to customer details from the aging report. As you know, in the AP aging report, you can get to the vendor, and you can now do the same in the aging report. So if you drill down and want to see the details of that customer, you can do it from your report. They've also improved the accounts in both accounts receivable and accounts payable ledger, the report filtering. So now if you filter by child locations within an entity, the line items tagged to other child locations are omitted from that report, which gives you more accurate information. They've also have better handling of external credits in accounts receivable and AP ledger reports. As many of you know, reconciling your AP and AR aging or ledger reports can be very challenging, and now the credits will appear in the appropriate period. I'm sure many of you are very happy for the hours that will be saved by that, I hope. Next slide, please. All right, accounts payable. So you can cancel payment requests in bulk. So previously, if you needed to cancel payment requests, you had to cancel them one by one. Now from your payment request screen, you can select the ones you want to delete and delete all of them, or cancel them so that you can run them through the process again. They've also improved the remittance information available on your electronic payments. Note that they have changed the name of electronic, which was previously known as ACH to electronic transfer payment. And finally, the vendor bank file details are now available for custom reports using the vendor as a primary data source. Next screen.
Excellent.
And we're back to you, Irene.
All right, reporting and insights. Let's do another polling question, please, Kim. Polling question number 2. We want to find out who is using the GL Dimension Balances report.
Okay, I'll close the poll here in 3, 2, 1.
Excellent. All right, so I don't know what the report is, so I've never used it. Number 1 answer. I love it and use it all the time. Yay, there's a few of you out there using it. That's awesome. Let's go take a look at this report because this is a really nice report and they've added some nice features this release. So hopefully this will be something you'll go take a look at and see if it's of use. The one thing about the report is that it's a little bit tricky. And so if you do a couple check boxes and you try to run it and you get nothing, you might get frustrated. So let's get over here into Intacct and let's take a look at this report and I'll show you a few things about the Dimensions Balances report. I'm under General Ledger. I am in an entity just because this is a multi-base currency environment, so I'm going to run it from the entity level. You can absolutely do it from the top level as well. And it's way over here on the bottom right, and it is this Dimension Balances report. Okay. When you open up the report, just like any report, you're going to pick a time period. I'm going to go ahead and choose my current year to date. The new feature that just came out is right here. We now have the ability to select a budget when we run a Dimension Balances report. Before it was just actual, no budgets. I'm going to go ahead and use actual and budget. As soon as I choose budget, notice I get to pick which budget I want to include in my report. We'll go ahead and use our revenue account group. Hopefully all of you are using account groups to run reports. That's a great way to get a range of accounts that you need using your account groups. Let's do it for one customer type. Not too long ago, Intacct, I think maybe 2 releases ago, Intacct started adding types next to their dimensions, which is awesome. So if you're utilizing customer types or vendor types, you can use that filter. I'm going to just look at my energy customers. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and view my report and show my report. Before that, I do that though, one thing that you want to do, sorry, I got ahead of myself, down here under the formatting, as with many of your general ledger reports, you need to pick which dimensions the report is going to be on. This is really important for your GL Dimension Balances report because Intacct needs to know, well, what dimensions am I using? So in this case, we're going to do our account ID and name and our customer, because I'm going to be doing a customer budget to actual. I can do side by side or cascaded. I can show subtotals and show grand totals. I'll go ahead and do the cascaded one. As always, because I'm choosing more than one account, Intacct says, hey, it might time out, but it's not going to. Here is my Dimension Balances report. So what I have is I have my GL account, revenue. I have my customers that are in that energy customer type. I have the budget that I've put in, and I have the period balance. How much has actually been posted? Okay. I'm going to click on Customize. I can also see the difference if I want to. So back down here under my selections, way down at the bottom, I can do budget then actual. I could do actual then budget, either way. And I can show a difference column. So now I'm going to show my actual, then my budget, and then my difference. Very nice, right? This is really a nice report, a dimension report that gives you good information, and it's even better today now that we have the ability to show budgets if we have that on a particular dimension.
Irene, I know I use this report a lot. I used to have to build a custom report that I called my trial balance with dimensions. and then I discovered this report. I hadn't looked at the releases, and I found this report. It's wonderful.
It is a really nice report. It's just a matter of learning to use it and get those check boxes in there. The other feature that they added in this report is the ability to retain year-to-date balances. That is really nice on a P&L, right? So if we come back over to Intacct, I'm going to go ahead and click on the Customize again. And I'm going to use the month of April for my example here. So I'm going to do current month, way up at the top here. I'm going to do April. I am going to turn off and just do my actual. Okay, I'm going to do the same revenue group. This is going to be for revenue. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see that I have this option to retain year-to-date balances. Let's view it before. I'm going to go to OK here. I have opening balance 0 because P&L accounts, right? So there's no opening balance. If I want to see that, I can check that box again, way back down to the bottom, retain my year-to-date balances, and now I'm going to have my beginning balance, my period balance, and my closing balance for P&L accounts by my customers in my group. All right, hopefully some of you will start using this report now. It is just so nice. I really just think that it gets underutilized. So hopefully you'll go in and give it a try and see if there aren't some nice reports out of there that you can use. Some other nice financial report enhancements. You'll notice in the financial report writer, in the past, we only had budget to actual. Now you can see there's two. There's actual to budget, budget to actual, similar to what I just did in the report, in the dimensions report. You want your budget first, or do you want your actual first? Okay, so Intacct added those two in the financial report columns tab. They changed wording a little bit. Seems like they change wording, Michelle, often, just like they changed the ACH. Now we're changing what used to be in dollars now says whole number, and what used to be forecast now says forecast prorated. So just a few slight terminology changes there. In the custom report writer, so that's not the financial report writer, but the custom report writer, very exciting. How many of you have custom reports with filters, and when you generate the report, you want to know what those filters are? Yep, you've got step number 7. You can show filters in the report output, and right at the top of the report is going to be the filters. In my example here, I had a filter account number is greater than 36,000, meaning I was bringing in all my P&L. That's going to show across the top of my report. Nice new feature there. And then Michelle kind of alluded a little bit to this with the whole vendor bank file detail, along with the ability to bring in fields related to this on the vendor data source. There is also the vendor bank file detail that you have to be able to build reports that you might need out of that custom report writer. Couple of little enhancements, but definitely the filter one is a nice one for those of you using custom reports. ICRW and IVE, both of those are add-on subscriptions. ICRW, Interactive Custom Report Writer, and then the Interactive Visual Editor is for dashboards. It's a brand new dashboard that's really awesome. We showed that in last month's new release webinar. So there's new reporting areas, inter-entity transactions, department location. They've updated some of the reporting areas for contracts, VAT, and construction. There are new time options. So if you are fiscal in your organization, you're on a fiscal time period, then we have fiscal time related measures. There is support for language and locale preferences. So if you do make that change, note that little bullet below. It does take up to 24 hours for you to actually see that change in your environment once you've selected it. ICRW only, there is a new custom tab that gives you the logic SQL statement. Okay, for those of you that are kind of report writers and programmers, you know that when Intacct is writing a report, there's a SQL statement behind that's pulling in all that data. If you've ever used Crystal reports, you see SQL statements. This is really awesome. So in the interactive custom report writer, there is now that SQL statement available. All right, cash management and polling question number 3, Kim. This is related to cash management. Which new release features have you already implemented or started using in cash management?
Nice
Okay,
to
I'll
see
wait.
some people are using matching rules and rule sets.
That's nice, huh?
I'll give it a few more seconds here and we'll close the poll in 3, 2, 1.
Okay. All right, about half, more than half of you say none of the above, and maybe you're not using the module or you just weren't aware of them. Matching rules and matching sets, excellent. Reviewing jail postings, good. Well, let's go take a look at these new features, and we'll show you what they are in cash management bank feeds. We do have a question in the Q&A, and I'm going to answer that real quick. How do you know if you have the custom report writer? Is it subscription based? The custom report writer is not subscription based. So if you look here at Intacct, you're going to have under reports, all, advanced section is custom reports. If you don't see that, that just means you don't have permissions. The custom report writer is available for everyone. It comes with the system, okay? Now, the interactive custom report writer is subscription based. It would also be listed here under advanced, and it would have a link to it. But everybody should have the custom report writer in their system. Again, if you don't see it, it's probably permissions missed. Bank feeds, automatic refresh capability now for all companies. So last release, they were starting to roll this out with some people. Now everybody should be noticing this. Bank feeds are being refreshed every 4 hours. With that, transactions are flowing into Intacct every 4 hours, giving you that ability to start putting them in Intacct, which is really nice. Okay. And as needed, you can still pull new transactions into the system at any time by clicking the refresh button. GL Insight, again, just as we saw, now it's also available on fund transfers, other receipts, banks and interest charges, credit card charges. So that lovely GL posting, if I come over here, I come to my other receipts in the cash management. Under all, I have my other receipts. If I view, remember we have to view, right? So if I view a particular transaction, now I have my posting details. Isn't that nice? All right. Posting details tab. Matching rules. So here's the steps to set up matching rules in cash management. In this PowerPoint deck, happy to help. I see we have a question about that. So in Intacct, the first thing you have to do is you have to go in and turn on the permissions. So go into cash management permissions, turn on your bank transaction rules and rule sets. Give permissions to whoever needs those in the appropriate roles. Then you're going to go in and you're going to add rules. Let's just show you one that's here in Intacct. I'm going to come to the top level. I'm going to come to cash management. I am on my setup tab. First, you set up rules. Here's a rule that removes leading zeros. Sometimes our bank includes leading zeros on our checks. Intacct does not. You can set up a rule for matching to remove leading zeros. Okay. So here you'll see I set it up. I come down and I'm doing amount equals. This might be the wrong one. Sorry. I know better than to do that. Matching by date and amount. Sorry, I don't think I had that finished set up. But you add rules, number 2, okay? Then number 3, you're going to go in and do a rule set. So you could have different rules for different bank accounts because one bank account might do leading zeros, one bank account might not. So Intacct lets you do rule sets and apply those rules appropriately. So here in the rule set, I'm going to go in and I said, okay, this is for my Wells Fargo AP account. And then I'm going to bring in whichever rule IDs I need that are appropriate for that particular account. Then you're going to go step 4 over to cash management, set up, and actually go into a checking account. And in your checking account, here's my Wells Fargo. I'm going to click on edit. And in my account, I'm going to grab and apply that rule set. When I reconcile this account now, then the rule is going to be applied and help me with my matching. If you have not done a bank rec in Intacct yet since the new release on May 21st, I think it was, you're going to get an error when you try to reconcile because this does have to be set up. Okay, so make sure that you go in and go ahead.
And Irene, this is if they're using bank feeds or if they're uploading transactions, correct?
This has to do with bank feeds and or importing, yes. Yeah, okay. If you're doing a bank rec and you're not doing any sort of matching, you're not going to have any issues. But if you are importing the CSV to do matching or you're using bank feeds, you need to set up a matching rule. Can I restate that one more time? Yes. So if you are using bank feeds or if you are importing, you have to, that's the error you're getting. You're trying to do your bank rec. You have to come set up a rule. So you're going to go add the permissions, come in and add a rule, create your rule set, and attach your rule set to your particular checking account. Okay. Did this new rule matching override all other rules set previously? Good question. And yes, remember that in the past, and of course I can't show you because we're all on the same environment of Intacct now, but in the past, when you went in to do the bank rec itself, right, when you went in to do the reconciliation, you had the option down here to do your matching. That's gone. Now, if you're going to import or you're going to do matching, you have to have it attached to the bank account. Okay, love the bank feed, but having issues with scenarios. The bank feed is refreshed, but the last transaction coming in, it can be delayed and be a few days prior. Oh, interesting. I don't, that sounds more like an issue. That may be something that you have to file a support ticket for. It works. I've been using it. I'm not having that trouble, so I'm not sure, but you might have to look in the community for that as well. Research it and make sure and see if any other users in the community are having that same issue. I like that you called out your Bank of America side. So definitely, you know, check the community and see if others are having it. And if not, it might be a bug issue that you need to get fixed in your environment. Other enhancements: before, when you opened a prior reconciliation, you had to start from scratch, including all of your matching. Now, if you open a prior reconciliation, your prior match transactions are all still matched. Before, permissions on bank transaction was limited to list and view. Today, you can have permissions for bank transactions, list, view, ignore, and manual match. In the past, each account had to be connected individually to your bank account. Today, you can have one connection to multiple bank accounts in the same bank. So if you've got 3 checking accounts at one bank, you want all 3 of those to have a bank feed, you can set that up. Last but not least is the ability to see the transactions. Now we can see bank transactions in the checking account setup under the Banking Cloud tab. I'm going to show you over here in my environment. I'm going to go back to my cash management. I'm going to go to setup, and I'm going to show you in credit cards, just for purpose of illustration for the screen itself. Here is this Bank Cloud tab if you have it connected. And so on the Banking Cloud tab, there's a new button that you can go see the transactions that came in, except, guess what? Except in credit cards. So it's not on credit cards yet, but it's in checking and savings. I imagine it'll be on credit cards next time. And I don't have a live bank feed going, so I can't show you that in my environment. So lots of little things that they continue to enhance with cash management.
Irene, I want to call out the tip you had on there on the previous slide. Before you reopen a reconciliation, download a copy of the reconciliation report just in case.
Yes, always do that. If you're going to do it, grab that PDF, right? Come back in here where your reconciliation, go to your reconciliation history, grab that report, download it, have it available so that you can use it to quickly reconcile. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Brand new service coming out. It's called Vendor Payments powered by CSI. And a few more things for those of you that are already using it. If this is something that you're going to want some more information in, this new vendor payment process, you can reach out to your client manager or you can email experts at armaninolllp.com. I've never seen that before. That is interesting. I hope I'm not on that email. Ha! Probably Michelle. Probably Michelle. Okay, let's keep going. Projects. Oh, you guys, this one came from you. This is an idea from the Intacct community, and other things that we have in today's session, of course, are as well. So keep voting, keep going out and adding to the community because those things really do get implemented, feature enhancements. Billable, if you're doing project invoices and you have credit card transactions, you can now mark them as billable. Go in to configure your projects and add credit cards as billable for your invoices, and you will get the billable checkbox in your credit card transactions. Another project one that's really nice is the ability to have project manager users. Okay, so remember we have employee users, project manager users, and business users. If you have project managers doing invoicing for projects, they can now draft invoices, they can add and delete lines, they can edit the existing lines in a draft, and they can actually delete their own draft invoice. So it allows them to draft it, see it, make sure it's right before it posts. Contracts. Quite a few people using the contracts module these days. They continue to make all sorts of enhancements, MEA allocations, the ability to clear those MEA allocations. Every single release we see another option under clearing for another type of MEA. So now we can also do predefined percentages if we need to clear our MEA allocation. There's that import billing price list option again. This one is a little bit different than the one we talked about before, price lists in order entry and purchasing versus billing price lists in contracts, but kind of the similar concept. But they really just enhance the template. If you've been using it, you know that it didn't have all of the detailed descriptions in row 2 like other templates. It didn't use the 1, 2, 3, 4 numbering system like the other templates do. Now all of that is there. And the import process does overwrite an existing billing price list entry. It does not support updating existing price lists at this time. Also, if you have any sort of connections going on via API contracts, there is a new API validation on that contract item price list object. Lots of other little enhancements here, specifying your bill to contacts on contract lines, including the ability to specify different ones for each contract line. That's nice. Intacct separated the project revenue calculation and scheduling process. The renew field now defaults from the contract header. So in the past, you had to manually go in and enter in the renew flag on each contract line. Now it'll default from the contract header, and you can modify each line accordingly. Last but not least, validation on edit of revenue amounts, talking about scheduled between MEA allocation. This is going to stop you from editing revenue schedules to move amounts between MEA allocations to an outside date of the effective MEA range. Okay, so lots of things going on there with contract enhancements. Michelle, dashboards.
All right. All right, dashboards and assignments. This is another thing that came from you guys, from the community. So we did get a chat asking about how to suggest something, and the community is a great way to suggest that and go ask everybody you know to go out and vote for it. So you now have there's a new dashboard component that you can place on your dashboard called the closed through summary, as Irene is going to show here. The closed through summary.
Almost there. It's
That's
refreshing.
okay. That's okay. So as those of us who have multiple entities or want to know the status of our close in each of our different entities,
Oh, I'm sorry.
are
I
two
grabbed the
different
wrong.
components.
Yes,
That's okay.
I grabbed the wrong one. We had one set up just for this, didn't we?
I know it did.
And
I think
I
it's on
just
that one, Irene.
no,
No,
that
you
one's
were
the
there.
same one that
Oh.
had both. It's called
Oh,
new. I thought we called it new release.
I thought we did too.
Well,
Welcome to live
that's all
session,
right.
huh?
Yeah, that's okay. Keep talking about it, and I'm going to pull up the
That's
other
okay.
one. Yeah.
So you have two
There it
options with your
is.
closed through. There we go. You have two closed, just as you see here. You have two options. One is a summary closed view, and that will show you a summary of all of the different entities. And if they are not if all of their closed through dates are not the same, you'll see it shows varies by entity. Otherwise, the closed view entity view will actually show what month each of the subledgers is closed through. And one thing to note is that this does not, the filtering on your dashboard will not adjust it. So if we were to filter this right now by 200 as an example, or 100, either one. Now it's going to make a liar out of me. No, it didn't. Good. Okay. So you'll see that you still see the 100s and 200s. Every once in a while in tech likes to make liars out of us. As
Right.
Irene said, they change names. I think it's just to keep us on our toes.
Yeah. So filtering does not work, which makes sense because if you're wanting to see all of your, what periods things are in, it makes sense to see that. So love that. People have been asking for a long time, can you give us a report or show us something that tells us what period is each entity in and each module? Here it is. It's for a dashboard. I know there's a few of you that are going right now and can go add that to your dashboard. I just know it.
Absolutely.
Platform and web services. So platform services, I know this doesn't mean a lot to most of you, but if you have integrations, make sure whoever's doing your integration, your IT people, that they are also regularly checking the developer site for new release features that are affecting integrations. So these are loop iteration enhancements, which will make your IT integration people smile. Intacct now has given named views, condition parameters, merge fields, and a do not interpret syntax. So a nice feature. And there's a note there that platform services supports 10,000 loop iterations. Can you imagine? Who could even manage that, right? But anyway, that is available and that's there. So make sure that if you have integrations going on, that whoever's working on those know about a few of these new enhancements. Web services, same thing. These are all out on the developer site. A lot of things related to general ledger, contracts, inventory, projects, AP, the construction module. I'm not going to go through these because again, like in projects, remember we talked about you can now mark a credit card transaction as billable. So what we're saying here is if you have an integration that's bringing credit card transactions in, and that's happening through an integration and you need that billable, that can be done through web services integration. So make sure your folks know. Construction early adopter program is still out there. They continue to expand functionality for those of you that are using it. Pretty soon it's going to be released and it won't be early adopter anymore. But if you are using it, there are some change requests, workflow statuses to be able to track change details in your project work. Nice feature. Be able to capture the project price changes in order entry. Think about that in the construction industry, right? Changes changing all the time. So having that ability to track and capture those changes. And as always, contact your client manager or experts at Armanino if you have any questions about the construction early adopter program, or if you're using it and you have any questions as well. All right, last but not least, polling question number 4. We want to know which of the following new release features you learned about today are of interest to your organization. Hopefully you're going to start using some of these new ones. We've got about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any questions about the information that we've covered today, please don't hesitate to ask in the Q&A or go ahead and chat. As a reminder, we do put our webinar recording out on YouTube, and so you have the ability to watch this recording at a later time as well. Lots of people answering. We'll give them time to answer as we continue on. I'll let you guys keep answering. I'm going to go ahead and continue. We covered a lot of new things that are out there for all of these different modules, which is really nice. Again, the new release webinars really do have a lot of good information. I'm very excited for all of you that are signing in and watching this and learning how to implement and keep up to date in Intacct. One of the things that we've run into sometimes is, unfortunately, people do not keep up to date and start implementing some of the new features, and then 2 years down the road they want to, and it's a lot more challenging because of the way maybe some of the structure has changed. So keeping up to date is really nice. Thank you all for joining today and doing that.
Great. And I'm going to end the poll here. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, let's see. What's our number 1 item? Using the GL Dimension Balances report. Look at that.
Yay!
Excellent. That's good, right? Reporting at Intacct whenever we can. The approval information on the history tab. Nice. People are going to be able to see that. Posting details and transactions. Great. Adding the close summary to dashboards. 50% almost. Excellent. Good. Well, we're very excited that you guys are going to be using a lot of these new features. As a reminder, we do have our Armanino Academy where we teach classes. We have lots of classes out there. Feel free to go out and look. If you are interested in taking classes, of course, as a client of Armanino, you do get discounts and whatnot. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Just let us know at the Academy. And thank you again, everybody. Yes. Another question.
We do have one question. Yes.
The
matching rule
go
set
ahead.
is, go ahead, you read it. No, you read it, please.
The matching rule sets is one rule enough and matching anything else that falls outside of the rule. Instances change month to month and may fall outside of the rule sets. That's a good question. I need to know more. Michelle, what about you? Like when you say things change, rules change, I'm not sure what kind of rule you're thinking that you're going to set and why it would change. So leading zeros, you match on dates, you maybe match on different names. So that's a good question. But you can edit those rules.
Right, and the question is if this is similar to when you used prior to this, where if you did it on date and or amount and check number as an example, and then you'd want to go back in a second time and take that matching attribute off, which is what it was called before, and do just amount to see if it caught more of them. I'm wondering if that's what they're asking.
Yeah,
I haven't tested that.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I need a little bit more about the scenario, but it is a new feature. So definitely one of those things, right? Where try it, see how it's working. And then there's might be a little bit about that in the help text as well. All right. We've got 2 minutes left. That hour went fast.
Yes, it
Any
did.
other questions related to any of the content presented today? If not, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Michelle and I's email addresses are on the last slide. So feel free to email us if a question comes up. We're always happy to help. Kim, is there a survey that pops up when they're done today?
There is. So just a little reminder that this webinar is recorded and you will receive it by email after the event. You'll also get a copy of the PowerPoints. So if you're not able to take notes, they will be there as well. And there is a survey that pops up as you exit out of the Zoom webinar. If you could just take a moment to give us some feedback, ideas for future events, that would be really appreciated.
We love feedback.
Yes.
Yes.
So with that, thank you
And we-
everyone for,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead,
No.
Irene.
No, I was just going to say, and just to prove it, in the past, we never got into Intacct. We just went through slides and we took the feedback. We need to start showing more stuff in Intacct. So now the last couple of releases, we're getting in Intacct more and more and demoing what's new releases. So just proof that we do love the feedback and we will improve as you suggested. All
Great.
right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everybody.
everyone.